In today's video, I'm going to tell you guys the top 5 countries you can visit this year in 2024 that you can do for under $1,000. So, if you guys are new, my name's Ezra. I'm a 22-year-old world traveler, absolutely love travel. Been to 28 countries and have a goal of visiting everything. So, I feel like I know a lot about this topic, and let's jump right into things. So the first country that I'm going to talk about is Peru. Now, this is no surprise in South America, probably one of the most popular countries, and while traveling to South America, it's the first I've ever been to. So first, let's talk about flights. Well, obviously for this discussion, it will depend where you're coming from. For my example, though, I flew from Canada to Miami. So if you're in Canada, the flight itself was around 300 each way. In Miami, it was 150, right? So it really depends in terms of the actual budget. This is going to depend on where you're coming from, but it's extremely cheap. Let's just say you're coming from Miami, you're there and back in 300 to 500. That's around most of the US and Canada, probably 500 to 800. So flights extremely cheap. We can talk more into flights in a different video, but just as a little sneak peek, the things that I most like to use, I know a lot of people have different opinions, but Kayak, if you're not familiar, I usually use the app. You can also use it online, and it's just a great platform where you can easily toggle and pretty much choose the flight you want, and you can see what dates in the year make the most sense, are the cheapest, etc. And then another favorite of mine is Skyscanner, where pretty much the app or the website scans the entire sky or flights available and then gives you the best prices possible. So usually when I'm looking for flights, I'll look at either of those. I purchased Peru on Kayak, but you can really use anything. Also Google Flights. This is a whole different discussion, but those are the key things right off the bat that I'd recommend. So starting with flights, very cheap. Next, let's talk about accommodation. Well, we stayed in multiple different places, and I'll get into that in a second because that's a key thing. But I would say, honestly, on average, staying in hostels and a little bit of hotels, we were paying around 10 bucks CAD. So I'll throw it up on screen or whatever, what that is USD if you're in US, but like 7-8 bucks a night, I'd say average. And then where we stayed, it was extremely diverse. This is another thing why I would recommend this, despite the budget, but especially with the budget, why you should go to Peru. Most diverse country I've ever been to, and I've been to 28 countries, and I know a lot about many of them. It's got mountains. So one thing we did was hike to Machu Picchu through the Andes Mountains. If you like hiking, honestly, one of the best places I've ever been. Absolutely gorgeous, stunning, crazy mountains there. They've got the desert. One of the last days we stayed in Hocochina Desert Oasis. They got the desert there. Accommodation was a little more expensive, maybe like 15 bucks just because it was a very touristy spot, but extremely diverse, still super affordable. And then the last place we stayed, which was also super cheap, maybe like 25-30 bucks a night, and this included tours, food, accommodation, everything, was in the Amazon in Iquitos, which is in the northern part of Peru. We stayed there, and extremely cheap as well. I mean, that's an amazing deal, super diverse. I mean, it's literally got mountains, the Amazon River, jungle, desert, you name it, Peru's pretty much have it. So both in terms of price as well as just landscapes and diversity, it's an amazing country. The last thing I mentioned is also history. Obviously, there's a lot of different countries that have interesting history, but Machu Picchu, one of the 7 wonders of the world, and one of the people that worked at Machu Picchu actually told us that it's the most popular 7 wonder of the world out of all the 7 wonders. So I totally see why. I'll obviously be throwing up clips here of our experience in Machu Picchu. It was absolutely breathtaking. We got there at 6 a.m., left at 10. I mean, it's worth the hype. Everything about Machu Picchu is worth the hype. And there's a lot of other amazing sites that you can see because the Inca had their empire out of Cusco. It's just truly amazing. So yeah, I think Peru's got to be a great choice for your 2024 destination list. South America, well, incredibly safe. The people were so nice. And so I could talk about this all day. Maybe we'll have another video, but let's move on to the next one. And so I'm moving away from here, and there's a couple options in Europe, but I'm gonna move away from that because they're starting to get a little more expensive. Talk about that later, but now I'm going to talk about Azerbaijan. This is a country I didn't know much about really before around a year ago, but you can fly there super cheap from Europe, from the US, even from Canada. And once you're in the area, it's super cheap and it's a lot closer than Southeast Asia. And it's a Muslim country, so it's very different from other places that I've been, but it's very interesting. The people were very friendly. There's a lot to do. We were just in the capital, Baku, and it's really cool too. They host the Formula One race. They're setting up the Formula One just as we were arriving, because I think the Formula One race happened a month after we left, but right around there. It's almost like a mini Dubai, Baku itself. It's extremely kind of bougie, expensive. However, that doesn't necessarily mean the prices are super expensive. So jumping into the prices, accommodation, honestly averaging like, I think the main hostel we stayed at was like, again, 10, 11 bucks Canadian. You know what that is, US, Euro. It's insane. And this was for like a pretty nice hostel. Hotels are going to range you a little bit more, maybe like 20 to 30. But again, as of right now, we're focusing more on that budget aspect. So super cheap. What about food? And I forgot to mention this for Peru. They have amazing food, super cheap. They've literally got it all. It depends what. The craziest thing we had in Peru was guinea pig, so just got to shout that out. But yeah, in Azerbaijan, we mostly stayed in Baku. In terms of the sites, they have mud volcanoes. We went to caves that were with carvings in the caves that were 10,000 plus years old. Pretty insane. They had like a bunch of different things. Kind of blanking on exactly everything we did. I would recommend, if you can, renting a car. It will be still pretty cheap, maybe like $5-10 a day, honestly, there. And gets outside of Baku, because we mostly stayed there, walked around the city, did various tours. There's cool kind of the older part of town as well. The food, though, we mostly got shawarmas, because you could find it's a very common food there, kind of this meat shawarma dish and meat kebabs, different things like that. We were probably averaging $1.50 Canadian to $2 per meal. You can get these for $1.50 just on the street everywhere. It's pretty much the average price. I'm not going to talk too much about this. It was kind of our fault. We did get scammed once, and we paid like 20 something for a shawarma. Totally our fault, though. Don't worry about that. If you want to ask more, ask in the comments. But besides that, average price would honestly be $2. So much to see and do there as well. It's a very interesting, cool place that I didn't know much about. I assume most of you guys don't know much about it. So add it to your list. Do a little more research, see what it's about. Add it to your list for sure. Now, the next 3 places are all very similar, and there's a reason we went to all of them. But I'm going to start with Uzbekistan. And again, another country that we're kind of trying to talk about, countries that are a little less mainstream, because, honorable mentions could be Portugal. Absolutely love that in Europe. Georgia as well. And I'd love to talk more about that. But right now, kind of more hidden gems, Uzbekistan. Starting off, nicest people I would say I've ever met in any country. Just so hospitable. We were on the train, and literally the nicest people. They were just helping, constantly wanting to help, giving us food recommendations, things to see, things to do, everything. Prices of things, insane as well. Accommodation, I would say, honestly, in general, these 5 places all are going to be around 8 to 12 a night. We were averaging 10. We stayed at guest house, kind of hotel and hostel, pretty much all averaging that price. Food was insane. I would say that was the key thing. Uzbekistan food is absolutely amazing. It's mostly meat skewers. They have, what's it called? I'm blanking on this word. I'm going to have to throw it up, but it's pretty much a rice dish with meat, everything like that. They got it at various of these Central Asian countries. And soups, great soups. I mean, really just a bunch of different meat dishes, all for like $2 or something. I remember the first day we got to Tashkent, the capital of Uzbekistan, we were just blown away. We each ordered like 5 dishes off the bat, because everything would just look so good, tasted so good, and was at great price points. So honestly, amazing. The sights there, the architecture, the history, it's amazing. Just briefly about the history, Samarkand, which is around a 2-hour train. Again, the train's super cheap from Tashkent to Samarkand. It's the kind of the center, the gem of the Silk Road. So if you know anything about the Silk Road, Marco Polo, where trade happened, all this influence throughout the world that's impacted us now, Samarkand was kind of the heart of the Silk Road. So you see all these different markets with silk, obviously, different types of spices, food, clothing, you name it, they got it pretty much. Everything's extremely cheap. You can bargain just like any other similar country that I've been to like this. And so yeah, truly amazing. The food, again, this other place we went to with the food, the waiter was like stressing for me because I ordered 5 dishes, but honestly I there's just so much I wanted to try because the people were so nice, and at a different occasion they recommended that I try these certain dishes, so I had to try all of them. It's just so cheap and so good, and the sights are beautiful. I would say Uzbekistan's got to be literally at the top of your list from someone that's gone to Europe, Asia, Africa, like Southeast Asia, like Middle East, everywhere around there. No question, added to your list. The next place I'm going to say, neighboring Kazakhstan. Before I went to Kazakhstan, all I really knew about Kazakhstan was Borat, and obviously that's a problem because Kazakhstan has so much more to offer, and most of Borat, if not all of it, I don't even think it was filmed in Kazakhstan. I'm pretty sure most of kind of the opening scenes with the village and stuff is in Romania or something anyway. But again, similar Kazakhstan, amazing people, super nice. There's this one instance where we're in an Uber. And again, another thing about Ubers real quick, the Ubers are insane. In Canada, US, Europe, wherever you're from, maybe they're like $20 per ride, maybe more. Here it was averaging probably like $1 per ride. And so there was either 3 or 4 of us, depending on where we were on the trip when I was in these countries, and it was like 25 cents. So we'd think, do we want to walk or do we want to pay 25 cents each? And we got to meet and talk to these people. The one thing is sometimes in these countries, there's a bit of a language barrier, which was tough, but it's truly extraordinary. And in this one example in Kazakhstan, the driver did speak pretty good English. He was so nice. We ended up meeting up with him the next day and going to this cold plunge place in the mountains there. So another thing is Kazakhstan, we stayed in Almaty, which is not the capital Astana is, but Almaty is kind of the main biggest city. And it's actually quite bougie. You wouldn't expect it, probably if you don't know too much about Kazakhstan, but for the most part, things are still super cheap. Everything you need, accommodation, transportation, it's all the same budget as I've been talking to so far. People are so nice. Hiking was amazing. Beautiful lakes. They kind of truly have it all. And that's going to bring me on to that last location, which in terms of hiking, if you want and you're looking for a location in 2024, 2025 with off the beaten path, great food, great hiking, great people, look no further than Kyrgyzstan. So again, I'm just going to fly by the accommodation, transportation, flight, all of that is very comparable to these other countries. Food super cheap. A crazy dish that we had there. Some Europeans might have had it in Europe because I've heard it's in Europe, so it's not as crazy for you. But for me, it was pretty crazy, which was horse. We had 3 horse meals, horse heart, like just meat, big thing of meat, and then also horse dumplings, but horse heart was pretty crazy. Honestly, my favorite though, surprisingly. So they got some pretty exotic food, but in both Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, heart is pretty common and just a thing that people breed and eat, just like cow or sheep or anything like that in maybe the country that you're from. But it was great, really interesting food, super cheap. People were so nice, and the hiking and the mountains are insane. The whole country's, at least most of it's pretty much made up of mountains. And so we did multiple 2 to 3 day hikes. If you want a horseback ride for super cheap, there was this one place I think we spent per night for 3 nights. It's like $30 a night for breakfast, lunch, dinner, staying in a yurt camp because a lot of the places and accommodation there have yurts, which are very cool. Throw it up there so you can see it. And people were so nice. I mean, I could talk about this forever, really. Like, so I feel like even with barely any English, we really did make connections with some of these people at the yurt camps who are kind of farmers and horsemen and just live there. And so it was truly amazing, long, like full day hikes there. And then we rented horses and went around lakes. It's truly such a beautiful country that's super affordable. And I feel like people don't talk about it enough. And so I really do believe that Kyrgyzstan's got to be on your list as well. Honorable mentions again that I've been to would be Peru. I lived there for 6 months. Absolutely love it. Or sorry, not Peru. Scratch that. Portugal. It's getting a little more expensive now since I was there, so I don't want to add it, but just as an honorable mention, definitely recommend going. I know it's increasing in popularity, but for a reason. And the second place, which I'm not sure if it's, I mean, Europe, Asia, I don't know. We're having a long debate about this, but is Georgia. Again, such an amazing place. Amazing food, super affordable, great wine, some of the best wine in the world. These two honorable mentions, not going to dive into super deeply, but you really do have to visit. So, yeah, that's about it. Again, Peru, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Azerbaijan, these 5 countries are absolutely amazing. That got to be on your list for under $1,000, super affordable. And that is it for this video. I really hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.